Shalom everyone and welcome to another pre-recorded Torah portion study. This is going to be the last pre-recorded show, I believe, that will be in, that will not be in sync with the Torah cycle because, I was in Perth for 2 weeks and I missed out on doing videos, so I'm just catching up now. And this week we're going to do this video is the last Torah portion for Genesis. The video I'm doing now, this Torah portion was last week, and it's called Vayehi. So if you want to follow along, just go to my Era of 303 series.blogspot.com. This is in the link in the description. Check it out. Go scroll down to the pages section and click on Torah studies, Torah portion notes, and then scroll down. It will take you to a page here. And scroll down to Genesis, week 12, Vayehi, and it'll lead you to this page, Vayehi and he lived. This is the last Genesis portion, then we'll move on into Exodus. So this is quite cool. So if you're new here with Torah, who don't know what Torah portions are, they're annual cycles when they would read the Torah and the prophets and the New Testament, link up to it so they can discover the Messiah and study the Bible. So if you're new to all this stuff and following the commandments, press this tab here, start here, Why Do Torah. There's a great hub over there so you can get up to date with all the amazing revelation that Yeshua has shown us, because we have inherited lies and now we're waking up in these last days to his truth. He's drawing his elect from the four corners of the earth. It is the Ephraim awakening, as Rob Skiba will call it. It's pretty amazing. So this video is just going to be Genesis 47-50 study, and we're just going to read through the notes I have here, and so I've decided to just let the audio bubble play in the background because I'm going to be talking the whole time. I don't want to waste my voice, so just let the audio bubble play. So we'll just listen to it, and then we'll, for each scripture, we'll listen to it, and then I'll read the notes for it. So without further ado, let us begin with Genesis 47, and let's finish Genesis.
And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the days of Jacob, the years of his life, were 147 years. And when the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph and said to him,
"If now I have found favor in your sight, put your hand under my thigh and promise to deal kindly and truly with me. Do not bury me in Egypt, but let me lie with my fathers. Carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burying place."
He answered,
"I will do as you have said."
And he said,
"Swear to me."
And he swore to him. Then Israel bowed himself upon the head of his bed. Genesis 48. After this, Joseph was told,
"Behold, your father is ill."
So he took with him his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And it was told to Jacob,
"Your son Joseph has come to you."
Then Israel summoned his strength and sat up in bed. And Jacob said to Joseph,
God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and blessed me, and said to me, "Behold, I will make you fruitful and multiply you, and I will make of you a company of peoples, and will give this land to your offspring after you for an everlasting possession. And now your 2 sons, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine, as Reuben and Simeon are, and the children that you fathered after them shall be yours. They shall be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. As for me, when I came from Paddan, to my sorrow, Rachel died in the land of Canaan on the way, when there was still some distance to go to Ephrath, and I buried her there on the way to Ephrath.
That is Bethlehem. When Israel saw Joseph's sons, he said,
Who are these?
Joseph said to his father,
They are my sons, whom God has given me here.
and he said,
Bring them to me, please, that I may bless them.
Now the eyes of Israel were dim with age, so that he could not see. So Joseph brought them near him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph,
I never expected to see your face. And behold, God has let me see your offspring also.
Then Joseph removed them from his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on the head of Ephraim, who was the younger, and his left hand on the head of Manasseh, crossing his hands, for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said,
The God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life long to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the boys, and in them let my name be carried on, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth.
When Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it displeased him, and he took his father's hand to move it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father,
Not this way, my father, since this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head.
But his father refused and said,
I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his offspring shall become a multitude of nations.
So he blessed them that day, saying,
By you, Israel, will pronounce blessings, saying, God, make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh.
Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh. Then Israel said to Joseph,
Behold, I am about to die, but God will be with you, and will bring you again to the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given to you, rather than to your brothers, one mountain slope that I took from the hand of the Amorites with my sword and with my bow.
Genesis 49. Then Jacob called his sons and said,
Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you what shall happen to you in days to come. Assemble and listen, O sons of Jacob. Listen to Israel, your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and the first fruits of my strength, preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power. Unstable as water, you shall not have preeminence, because you went up to your father's bed. Then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Simeon and Levi are brothers. Weapons of violence are their swords. Let my soul come not into their counsel. O my glory, be not joined to their company. For in their anger they killed men, and in their willfulness they hamstrung oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them in Jacob, and scatter them in Israel. Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. He stooped down. He crouched as a lion and as a lioness. Who dares rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him, and to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. Binding his foal to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. He has washed his garments in wine, and his vesture in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. Zebulun shall dwell at the shore of the sea. He shall become a haven for ships, and his border shall be at Sidon. Issachar is a strong donkey, crouching between the sheepfolds. He saw that a resting place was good, and that the land was pleasant. So he bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant at forced labor. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a viper by the path, that bites the horse's heels, so that his rider falls backward. I wait for your salvation, O Lord. Raiders shall raid Gad, but he shall raid at their heels. Asher's food shall be rich, and he shall yield royal delicacies. Naphtali is a doe let loose, that bears beautiful fawns. Joseph is a fruitful bough by a spring. His branches run over the wall. The archers bitterly attacked him, shot at him, and harassed him severely. Yet his bow remained unmoved. His arms were made agile by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. By the God of your father, who will help you, by the Almighty, who will bless you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that crouches beneath, blessings of the breasts and of the womb. The blessings of your father are mighty beyond the blessings of my parents, up to the bounties of the everlasting hills. May they be on the head of Joseph, and on the brow of him who was set apart from his brothers. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf, in the morning devouring the prey, and at evening dividing the spoil.
All these are the 12 tribes of Israel. This is what their father said to them as he blessed them, blessing each with the blessing suitable to him. Then he commanded them and said to them,
I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field at Machpelah, to the east of Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephron the Hittite to possess as a burying place. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife. And there I buried Leah. The field and the cave that is in it were bought from the Hittites.
When Jacob finished commanding his sons, he drew up his feet into the bed and breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. Genesis 50. Then Joseph fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants the physicians to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. 40 days were required for it, for that is how many are required for embalming. And the Egyptians wept for him 70 days. And when the days of weeping for him were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying,
If now I have found favor in your eyes, please speak in the ears of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, I am about to die. In my tomb that I hewed out for myself in the land of Canaan, there shall you bury me. Now therefore, Let me please go up and bury my father. Then I will return.
And Pharaoh answered,
Go up and bury your father as he made you swear.
So Joseph went up to bury his father. With him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his household, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, as well as all the household of Joseph, his brothers, and his father's household. Only their children, their flocks, and their herds were left in the land of Goshen. And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen. It was a very great company. When they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, they lamented there with a very great and grievous lamentation, and he made a mourning for his father 7 days. When the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning on the threshing floor of Atad, they said,
This is a grievous mourning by the Egyptians.
Therefore the place was named Abel Mizraim. It is beyond the Jordan. Thus his sons did for him as he had commanded them. For his sons carried him to the land of Canaan, and buried him in the cave of the field at Machpelah, to the east of Mamre, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephron the Hittite to possess as a burying place. After he had buried his father, Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had gone up with him to bury his father. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said,
It may be that Joseph will hate us and pay us back for all the evil that we did to him.
So they sent a message to Joseph, saying,
Your father gave this command before he died. Say to Joseph, Please forgive the transgression of your brothers and their sin because they did evil to you. And now, please forgive the transgression of the servants of the God of your father.
Joseph wept when they spoke to him. His brothers also came and fell down before him and said,
Behold, we are your servants.
But Joseph said to them,
Do not fear, for am I in the place of God? As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive, as they are today. So do not fear. I will provide for you and your little ones.
Thus he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. So Joseph remained in Egypt, he and his father's house. Joseph lived 110 years, and Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the 3rd generation. The children also of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were counted as Joseph's own. And Joseph said to his brothers,
I am about to die, but God will visit you and bring you up out of this land, to the land that he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob.
Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying,
God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here.
So Joseph died, being 110 years old. They embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt.
Okay, that's the final Torah portion for Genesis. Now that was a lot of prophecy right there that we read. It was about Jacob and the blessing of Ephraim and Manasseh and the death of Joseph. So that's the conclusion of Genesis. Now we're going to be reading the notes that I wrote for last year of this Torah portion. So here, Jacob does not want to be buried in Egypt because Egypt is an idiom for the world. He wants to be buried in Canaan because God gave the promises to Abraham and his seed. So what's happening here is that Jacob recognizes that since all the Israelites are now living in Egypt and they're getting so much blessing, he fears they're going to forget their identity and they're going to go astray and go after the things of Egypt. So Jacob says, I don't want to be assimilated into this culture. I want to go back to the promised land. So then that can be So you can take my body and bury me there, which can act as a symbol to remind you and the family to remember that you are Israel and you're going to return to the land. So it's quite interesting how he says that. And that should remind us too that we live in the modern day Egypt, that we should remind ourselves that we're in exile. We're in exile, and we do have some blessing, of course, but remember, we're in exile, and it's a bit tough, man. We're surrounded by so much evil, and it's nonsense, and it's very hard. But there's one day he's gonna bring his people into the land of the promise for Abraham and his seed. So Rachel died in Bethlehem, giving birth to Benjamin. This is connected to the New Testament because Benjamin represents Yeshua, who was also born in Bethlehem, of course. So in the New Testament, there's a reference to when Herod is killing all the children. There's a reference to Rachel weeping for the northern 10 tribes leaving and the killing of the kids. So, all right, so let's talk about Jacob. So Jacob is mentioned as being blind in the story. So Jacob's eye, it speaks about his spiritual eye was waning, and that spiritual eye is the Hebrew letter ayin, and the pictograph of ayin is what I have in my Era of 303 logo. It is the symbol of God's all-seeing eye, and you could take it two ways. It can either 303 could either represent the Illuminati and Satan's kingdom, or could represent the Messianic kingdom, with Yahweh as the holy governor of the whole earth. So it's up to you whether you want to take it negatively or positively. That's why I put that. Interestingly, I didn't intend to put that there, but it was there. I was like, it looks like the iron. That's convenient. Anyways, so Jacob's prophecies have incredible accuracy when he prophesies for the tribes and the sons of Israel. These prophecies are so important. I mean, if you studied them in history, if you just follow these prophecies and follow all these nations in history, you actually identify which nation is a descendant, the offspring of the tribes. It's very, very amazing. There's people who have done studies on this. Jacob's prophecy just seems, you read it, it seems very boring and long, but this affects the entire world, the bride, and the bride of God. I should write there. So we can trace the 12 tribes in history from the blessings given by Jacob. From my research so far, so I've been researching recently the tribe of Dan, which is a very fascinating tribe, and you'll find out why. I found where the tribe of Dan has gone after their early falling away. In short, they took part in trade with Phoenicia. They were into Greece, and they came into Greece known as the Sea Peoples or the Dorians, who later settled in Sparta. They became the Spartans. Next, some went off into France, into Spain, Germany, and ultimately they landed in Ireland. They became known as the mythical god-like tribe called the Tuatha-De-Danann. So that's the ancient history of them. It's quite profound. If you see the name Dan anywhere, that's where Dan is known for naming places and things after themselves, after their Dan. In recent history, they were the priest kings and later became connected to the Nazis and the creation of satanic super soldiers and chosen ones for the army of the beast system. So it's my opinion that these super soldiers that we hear about from Russ Disda and the Black Awakened, James Casbolt, Max Spears, Holly Bagley, all these people all talking about super soldiers. These are the new Danites. They're looking for a specific bloodline, like to create these super soldiers, and it's my opinion this is the tribe of Dan. Even some of them even say themselves. I'm going to show this here. They're going to say that the tribe of Dan is what they're looking for, the bloodline for the super soldiers. So Joseph's blessing is connected to Revelation 22:2. So there's a portion from Jim Staley's Torah portion. So he he speaks about Joseph's blessing. So that's Revelation 22:2. In the middle of its street, on one side of the river is the New Jerusalem, and on that was the tree of life, bearing 12 kind of fruits at 12 tribes, yielding fruit every month. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations, the Goyim. So we know the Goyim is Ephraim. So let's have a look at Jim Staley's video. What point was it at? 53:30. Let's find it. 53:30 is where he talks about the Jacob's blessing, Joseph's blessing, I meant to say, connected to Revelation. Let's have a look.
So what's going on here is that Joseph is saying, God is saying through Joseph, you are a beautiful, fruitful son. A son that has been planted by the tree of life, and you are drawing your blessings from the spiritual insight you get from the tree of life. Yet your sons hate you, but your daughters are protecting you. And I will just tell you this, I work with people for a living, and it is 9 out of 10 times that the woman in the household is what's keeping the household together.
That is so
It is
true.
the woman who tends to be more spiritual, not in every case.
Good.
They tend to feel things, sense things, have a stronger bead standing the line more than the husband, who tends to compromise, tends to waver, tends to not know where he's at, tends to be pretty much an Israelite.
I mean, yeah, I just always thought that is the truest thing ever. That's why the woman is so important in the family. I can attest that for my family as well.
But through time, Yeshua comes, the sons of Israel are strengthened, and they begin to pick up their bow.
So you read in the Joseph's prophecy speaks about the bow and the sons of Israel on the bow. So what he's saying is, what we get in the translation in the Masoretic King James of the blessing for Joseph has actually got a whole new meaning in the Hebrew. There's the vines on the wall represents I think it represents the women of Israel. And we just thought how women are powerful. And now he's going to talk about the bow and what that represents.
Of Israel are strengthened, and they begin to pick up their bow. We have forgotten archery lessons, my friends. We've forgotten how to shoot. And what are in our bow? What do we shoot as men? But our children. Did you know? Gosh, I wish I had instantaneous. I wish I could bring so many PowerPoints to my head of what I've done in the past. But did you know the word shoot is connected? It's
buffering. Yeah, so what he's saying, the word shoot an arrow is I think it represents the Hebrew word yara, and that word yara is the root word for Torah. So it means to hit the mark. And that also connects to hitting the mark means is to not sin, which means missing the mark. So I think that's what he's going to say next. If this loads, come on, you can do it. And the Wi-Fi is playing up. Sorry guys, this is a complete, turn on this on and off, connect, and we'll try again. Okay, let's see if this works.
Did you know? Gosh, I wish I had instantaneous. I wish I could bring so many PowerPoints to my head of what I've done in the past. But did you know the word shoot is connected? It's the word yara in Hebrew, which is the absolute fundamental principal word of where Torah comes from. The actual 3-letter word. What am I thinking of? The foundational word of Torah comes from yara. It's to shoot at something. When you miss the mark, the definition of sin is because you're shooting at the wrong target. Or you miss the bullseye, that's called sin. That's why the author is using missing the mark. He's not...
Actually, this reminded me of something that happened last year, I think. Because the symbol of archery and that is a representation of whether you're going to hit the mark, which is not sin. And that's funny because I remember I was on camp, and it was like a Christian camp, but it wasn't Christian. It was like there were panels when you talked about faith and family and all that. And there was an activity we did. It was archery, and everyone was so bad, and they were like, the arrow was falling apart from the string, and they kept on missing, falling short. But for some reason, I just kept on getting close. I kept on hitting it close on the bullseye. I was like so good. I was like, what? I don't know why I've got these skills, and that could be, I don't know, maybe that's a picture of Yahuwah saying, okay, so like the friends I was with, they're not in the truth, they're not in covenant, they're probably not even saved. And maybe he's saying to me, you're light to a world, you're an example to them, to show them how to not miss the mark. I'm like, okay, that's a cool revelation. So, I don't know.
That's called sin. That's why the author is using missing the mark. He's not just making that up. It is connected to the word to shoot, which is to yara, which is Torah, which is connected to teacher, which is connected to rabbi, which is connected to, believe it or not, water, which is connected to the latter and former rains. All of that is the same Hebrew word. All of it comes from the same word. It's amazing. So now I want you to go to the book of Revelation.
There you go.
Yeah. Book of Revelation. We might just end here. Make it a short night. Chapter 22. You know, how many know my life number? 222. 2 Timothy 2:2, and the things that you've heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to reliable men who will also be qualified to teach others. So discipleship is my heartbeat, to teach others to teach others. But then I stumbled upon this actually in my studies that is connected to what we just read that blew my mind, and I think that there might be more than one reason for 222. Let's read Revelation 22:2. In the middle of the street, John is seeing in the heavens, on either side of the river that's coming out from the sanctuary of the temple, was the tree of life, which bore 12 fruits, each tree yielding its fruit every month. The leaves of the trees were for the healing of the nations. Let me read that again. In the middle of the street, on either side of the river, was the tree of life, which bore 12 fruits, each yielding its fruit every month. The leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nation. How many have heard that scripture? The leaves of the tree are healing of the nation. How many have heard that used in about a bazillion different ways? From medicinal purposes. Think about it. We're in heaven. Who needs medicinal things in heaven? Heaven being on earth. But seriously, there is a metaphor here because we are so far removed from the biblical text and the agricultural idiomatic expressions that are there, we miss sometimes the most amazingly simple things that are super profound. So if we go back to Genesis chapter 49, what do we have? It is nothing other than a prophecy about Jacob and his sons, is it not? Jacob is called, all of Israel is called a tree. He's giving prophetic words to his sons that come as branches off that tree. In chapter 49 of Bereshit, of Genesis, in verse 22, it says that Joseph is a fruitful son that is pulling his spiritual insight from the leaves of the tree of life. So when you eat leaves, what do you become? A leaf. You literally become what you eat. This is why Yeshua said, if you eat of me, you will never be hungry again. If you drink of me, you'll never be thirsty again. You are what you eat. If you eat the manna from heaven, you become the manna from heaven for earth. If you eat the tradition and doctrine and words of men, you become nothing but regurgitated meat for someone else. And eventually a certain generation is going to wake up and go, this is disgusting. And 75% of our young people walk away from Christ. Because we're not giving them the manna from heaven. We must be eating something different because we are what we eat. And so what I am going to suggest to you is very simply, in Jeremiah chapter 11, it says that Israel is a tree. The sons of Israel are the leaves of the tree. And so what's happening prophetically in Revelation 22:2, I believe that what he's saying here is that in the millennium, it is the sons of Israel that become finally their destiny of what I call them to be. They are the healing of the nations. The sons of Israel, the sons of the tree. What is the tree? But Yeshua himself. It's the sons of the tree that become healing to the nations. Why does it say in another part, it says that Joseph's branches will reach over the wall and it will drop fruit for the nations. And the nations will come up and they will eat of the fruit and they will say, what God is this? That has such unbelievable ordinances and decrees and commandments that blesses his people so greatly. I want to know this God. You follow me? Because the fruit comes from the leaves, from the branches that come from the tree.
Wow, that's pretty profound. So if you want to watch the whole video, the link would be just search this up on the video. Jim Staley, Torah Portrait 2015. Let's continue. So Joseph's blessings makes more sense in Hebrew. So this is what it is. This is what Jim Staley through the Hebrew. This is what he translated through it. You are a beautiful, fruitful son, a son that has been planted by the tree of life, and you are drawing your blessing from the spiritual insight from the tree of life. Yeah, your sons hate you, and your daughters are protecting you. It's pretty amazing what that pictures. So the sons of Israel are weak now. The daughters hold the line. So since the sons are not doing much now in compromise, now the daughters are standing and making a stand. Israel's hand, 10 tribes are weak. They have no power. Yeshua then comes to strengthen the weak hands. He empowers us. He's the one that gives us the strength to keep on going and endure. It's pretty profound. So Jacob says Joseph's blessings are going to be so great, they're going to push the boundaries to the boundaries of heaven and earth when they meet. Wow. So Yeshua, remember we spoke about the tree representing Israel, the tree of life. So Yeshua is the root, the tree is Israel, the leaders of Israel and the patriarchs are the branches, and the children and the sons are the leaves. If the sons are connected to the right leadership, connected to the right trunk, drawing sap from the roots, the whole tree becomes fruitful. Roots drawn from the wells or waters underground, the eye of God, the iron, the source of all power, and that trees are to be powerful. I love that picture. And that's how we should be. We need to be rooted in the word. We need to trust in it for our life. It's our life. Joseph's prophecy is our prophecy. We have to root in Yahuwah's word. Sons of Israel trade leaves for the tree of life for arrows. We need to be pulling out leaves, not arrows. So leaves represent the iron. It's the leaf is in the shape of an iron, where the Hebrew letter iron comes from. And that's a picture of discernment and insight and the power of God. So in Genesis, Yahuwah does not introduce us to the commandments. In the book of Genesis, it's just a narrative, historical narrative, covering a whole, it's covering 2,000, no, in fact, it's covering 3,000 years of history, the book of Genesis. That is a lot of history in only like 50 chapters. 3,000 years of history. And Yahweh does not introduce the commandments to us until Exodus 19. He begins to go into the commandments. So this reminds us of the mistakes we have made in the past. So Genesis reminds us of our past and the mistakes that the patriarchs and all the judgment of the flood and the Tower of Babel and all that. So we can then correct ourselves to go in the right direction. So that's why we read all these portions and look at the mistakes that the patriarchs made and the mistakes before the flood and after the flood, so we can go, okay, this is what brought judgment. God is setting an example here. I don't want you to do this, so change our ways and repent. So that's what Genesis is all about. And then in Exodus, he gives us how to do it. He gives us the guidelines. Okay, so Jacob's family stays 17 years in Egypt. 17 is a significant number. They got comfortable in the world, in other words. If there's a place they were not supposed to entertain or join, we are not of this earth. So what happened historically, Israel became such a powerful economic group there that they started trading with in the Mediterranean world. That's what happened to the tribe of Dan. That's why they left so early. I think Deuterocyclus says there were two exoduses. One just before Joseph dies. Tribe of Dan was migrating into Greece, and the exodus by sea, and then there was another exodus on land with Moses. So that's what happens. Okay, so the number 17 here about Jacob living in Egypt is a very special in scripture. So there's a little bit of maths here. So Abraham lived to 175 years. So get that number by 5 times 3 times 7, and 5 plus 3 plus 7 equals 17. So that to get that number, you times these numbers. But if you plus these numbers you get 17. And you plus all those numbers, you get 17. So Isaac lived 108, which is 6 times 6 times 5. But if you times that, if you plus this, you get 17. So Jacob lived to 147, and that's 7 times 7 times 3. But if you plus that, that's 17. Oh, that's pretty amazing. No coincidence. And then here's some more. The ark rested on the 17th day of the 7th month. Joseph was 17 when he had dreams. Jerusalem appears in the Psalms 17 times. 17 angels appear in the Gospel and Acts. So when Israel settled in Egypt, it allowed the 12th dynasty pharaohs to bring them into slavery because they got incorporated into Egyptian pagan culture. This is exactly what's going to happen to us in the second Exodus. We must be slaves to the New World Order or Light World Order. Some people say that there's going to be 2 world order systems. The dark side's going to be destroyed by the light New World Order, and it's going to appear like a New Age enlightenment. It's going to look Christian, and that's the New World. That's the order that we're going to be enslaved to. And then after that, there will be an Exodus. So slaves, importantly, lose their means of production. Illusion of choice. They have an illusion of choice. They think they can vote for presidents, but really it's rigged, the system. It's something your votes don't matter. So slaves are never banished from society. We can't just leave our houses and not pay taxes and just go out into be nomads. We can't do that. So if we can't do that, that means we are slaves by definition. We pay more tax than any other slave in slave society. For everything. Water, electricity, internet. It is ridiculous. And if you have Foxtel, it's just nonsense now. The eradication of the middle class is what causes the spiritual decay in all societies that have fallen. Talk about the great civilizations in Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, Sodom and Gomorrah, Atlantis even. The key to how the civilization fell is because they destroyed the middle class. And the spirituality was destroyed. It became very perverse and all that. It's just, it's happening in our day, guys. Nothing is new under the sun. So we hold our hands the way we have a prosperous life with following him. I think that has something to do with Jacob. So Jacob has set up the younger before the elder. Each results in calamity. So what happens is, the reason why he blessed the younger instead of the firstborn is because each time he did, it results in calamity. So remember, Esau stole Esau's blessing, and then there was the Rachel and Leah incident in Laban's house. So Jacob was very careful in this last portion of his life. So Ephraim, the word means fruitful. So it seems Jacob recognized the name and the promise. The right hand represents the Messiah. So he gets his right hand, Messiah, and blesses the fruitful Ephraim. So when Jacob crosses his hands, he forms an X, which is in the Hebrew letter. The Hebrew letter is a Tav. It is a mark, sign, or a covenant, or the sign of the cross. And Jacob did this by faith. So that's pretty astounding that this is a picture that he does. So the multitude of nations for Ephraim says he's going to become the fullness of the Gentiles. And who are those people? Well, Romans 11:25, for I would not, brethren, that ye should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles come in. So it's connecting Israel with the fullness of the Gentiles. Because why? Because Israel dispersed amongst the nations after their disobedience. They were kicked out of the land. So they're Gentiles, Ephraim. That's why it's called Ephraim Awakening, because we are Ephraim, the prodigal son. So when the fathers bless their children, Israel shall bless them, saying to make all other generations to be like Ephraim and Manasseh. Why do they say this? Because they make the decision to come out of Egypt and to be grafted in, to get a new identity, and that is to be in Israel, a Hebrew. The one that crosses over from the pagan world of destruction into one of life and satisfaction. So double portion blessings goes to Joseph instead of Reuben, the firstborn, because Reuben messed up. Jacob prophesies to his sons of what shall happen in the last days. He even says in the last days that these prophecies shall happen. So the gathering of Jacob and the children to bless them in the Hebrew refers to gathering seeds or grain, and then he says, and then again in the same passage he says he gathers his children. Why does it repeat the same word? Because it's a different Hebrew word, and that word means harvest, and it refers to the beginning, the first time, the seed spreading of the nations, spreading into the nations, the seed of the children of Israel. And then the second gathering is the second coming, when Yeshua grabs and harvests the fully grown children of Israel and gathers them together. So that's what that pictures and foreshadows in the Hebrew language. We miss this in the English. So if you see a repetition of words in the scripture, and it's just like, why do they repeat the words? It's because in the Hebrew, they're two different words. I betcha. So the first gathering of seeds of Jacob represents the first Exodus until the conquest, the judges, and the kings. The seed will then be scattered, so it can be planted and rooted and grow in the pagan nations. This happened around circa 722 BC, when the northern kingdom went into Assyrian captivity and dispersed into the world, and in 586 BC when the Neo-Babylonians captured the southern kingdom. So we are the children of Rachel in slavery now, but in the greater Exodus, which is coming soon in the future, will free us from all that bondage, and the end of the growing season is coming right now, and he will then have the harvest gathered, and have all the descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel into Jacob and gather them together, just as Jacob did in the last moments of his life. Wow, so here's a quote from one of my characters, an era of 33. what the son wishes to forget, the grandson wishes to remember. So this is a character from Era 33. So one of the main characters, Jonah, he has a grandfather that was part of Project Blue Book, and his father, Adoni, was he was involved in a lot of these I guess you could say projects that involve a lot of interesting things. I'm not going to spoil too much. And Jonah is the one that gets all this information, and then but what's interesting, his grandfather and his father never realized the full truth. They're just like, okay, we have all this information, but Jonah comes to a conclusion that is profound, and I'm not going to say what happens, but the grandson, Jonah, realizes that he's been lied to, and he finds the truth. It's pretty amazing. So Jacob probably saw the rebellion of Korah when blessing Reuben. Because we know Korah is a descendant of Reuben, and we know what happened to Korah. Alright, the tribe of Simeon is completely lost, like the Levites. So, if you noticed, the tribe of Simeon and the Levites, they didn't get an inheritance, they didn't get a plot of land when during the time of Joshua, when the Israelites took the land of Canaan. Why was this the case? Because in the blessing it says that it's interesting because these tribes were the most warlike. Simeon and Levi actually destroyed the town of Shechem. Like, they did it, the way they did it was not according to the commandments. They just killed everyone while they were all circumcised. They were trying to recover from the pain, and just aggressively came in there and just killed everyone. That's not how they do it, and they did it, and that sin, they didn't get an inheritance, so they pretty much scattered throughout the tribes of Israel. But they didn't get a punishment as bad as Dan, because they will return as there were 144,000 in the last days. It's interesting because the tribe of Dan is not in the 144,000, and I believe that because they are too busy judging the world as being the super soldiers, demonic super soldiers that would cause the Black Awakening, which would be on a universal scale. All these random people will just get triggered, and then they would pretty much unleash hell. I mean, they said that these soldiers are so bad they're going to cause martial law, and the New World Order doesn't come because of that. So these are the super soldiers of the tribe of Dan. They're busy being the Antichrist's army. We're going to talk about that here. So Judah will grow when the fullness of the Gentiles are complete, and Judah will be part of Messiah, because if you see in the prophecy, there's the reference of the vine, and we know Messiah says, I am the vine and you are the branches. So the branches are the tree, and we talked about the significance of the tree. And so Judah's eye shall be red as wine. And what does wine represent? The teachings and the doctrines of men, because remember, from the whore of Babylon has the wine in the hand, and it's filled to the double. That means she's drunk on the blood of the saints. So that's what that represents, the wine. And that doctrines of men, the Pharisees, the Judaism and Zionism and Kabbalah and all that nonsense. So teeth as white as milk, what does that represent? It represents the Torah and the purity of God's word, like milk and honey. So here we go. So Dan will not be protected in the last days. Why? This is what got me very interested in the tribe of Dan, particularly in the research for Error 33. Don't mind the spelling. This is all notes copied down in a notebook, and I had to rush to get this all typed up last year, so there might be a few mistakes in it. So as we go on further, the Torah portions get better and better as we go on, so don't worry. So this is relevant for the research in Error 33, my series. Dan will only be redeemed last minute during the 3.5 years of the tribulation until Christ returns. The super soldiers, according to James Casbolt, an ex-super soldier, are the Danites. I'm going to show you that now. I'm going to go have a look at it. Revelation 19:19 is the Danite army that will try and attack Yeshua, who is the rider on the horse. Because remember from the prophecy of Dan, it says he will be a serpent in the way and bite the horse's heels. That represents Hasatan, the seed of the serpent, will be attacking Yeshua on the white horse in the millennial reign. So, what does this mean? Most Danites will not make it into the millennial reign? What does this mean? And then my main character, James Casbell, in the Era of 33 series, episode 2, if you read it, he pretty much reveals that he's from the tribe of Dan. And and the question is, will Dan be redeemed? Will Casbolt be redeemed? Find out in the last season of Era of 33. You might find out what might happen to Casbolt. I know what's going to happen, but I'm not going to tell you. So, yeah. So Revelation 19:20. I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies, the Danites, gathered together to make war against him on the horse, remember the prophecy, the serpent is going to bite the horse's heels, and against his army. The beast was taken, and with him the false prophet who worked the signs in his sight, with which he deceived those who had received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. These two were thrown alive into the lake of fire that burns with sulfur. So according to Jacob's prophecy, Dan will be a snake. Satan, the beast, is described as a snake. In the path of the horse, Yeshua's white horse. So Dan, as a majority, seems to be playing on Satan's side in the Genesis 13:15 seed war. I don't want to get onto another rabbit trail here, but I found by revelations that I have uncovered with the study of Sparta, the Greek polis from Sparta, and the connection to the apostate tribe of Dan. There's a lot of research in it. If we understand Sparta for what it is, we can understand Dan's role in Nimrod's army in the New World Order and end days, and how we Christians can be in danger from our own fellow brethren. I want to lead you to this post here on my blog. It is called The Antichrist's Danites, Super Soldiers, Hercules, Depopulation, and Sparta. This is pretty much most of my research I've done in the tribe of Dan, and wow, is it something fascinating. So if you're interested in looking into this, just go on my blog, link is in the description, and go on the sidebar, go up here to top posts and scroll down to the one here with the Spartan hoplite, and that's the post. Really interesting stuff in that post. From my research, they were the Spartans who were the most powerful and feared Greek hoplite army in the Aegean, which was a perfect replica for the New World Order master race society. In fact, Hitler was impressed by the Spartans, who apparently believed in an ancient eugenic system. So the Spartans believed in eugenics. What they do, they'll get the women to do exercises, and then the women will become fit and strong. And then what they would do, they get the women to shave their head to look like men, and then the men will then copulate with them. And when they give birth to children, if the child had like a defect or like it was sick or something, they will get the child and throw it off the mountain. Child sacrifice. And if the child was good and well, they'll raise the child in like a trauma-based mind control system called the Agoge. It reminds me of all these super soldier techniques that in the stories. It's pretty much a modern-day Agoge system. It's quite frightening. I mean, these people were inspired by Hitler and these super soldier programs that just evolved over time. And wonder why Hitler loved the Spartans. They were a totalitarian state. They were a garrison state. They were a standing army. Their society was literally an army. Like, all the citizens were soldiers. It's crazy. So they believe in ancient eugenics that creates the perfect homoioi equals hoplites to depopulate the slave state of Mycenae, which reminds me of the people of Messiah. Also, they are not mentioned in the end times in 144,000, making me believe they're in league with the devil. So Super Soldier James Casbolt claims this, and also I found out in my research that connects the Spartans with the tribe of Dan. This is from 1 Maccabees 12:21-23. Arius, king of the Spartans, sent greetings to Onias, the chief priest. It has been found in a writing concerning the Spartans and Jews that they are kinsmen and that they are descendant from Abraham. Look at that. Spartans are related to Abraham. Why? Because remember when the Israelites were in Egypt, at this time when Joseph and Jacob died, the Danites decided to go out into the Mediterranean to trade because they had so much wealth. They started to trade with other islands in Crete and the Aegean, and went to Greece, and they founded Argos and Athens and Sparta and Troy. Troy in the Iliad, the Trojans are called the Danans, and the Greeks are called the Danans. They're like very similar names. And why are they called that? Dan. It's tribe of Dan. So now since we have learned this, please write us about your welfare. For our part write you that your cattle and property are ours and ours are yours. So we command them to report to you to this effect. If this is true, the Black Awakening is going to be a civil war against Yahuwah's Israel and those grafted in by Jesus. We might be purged by our own brethren. If I've piqued your curiosity, I have some resources that you can research after the Sabbath day, and it's very delicious stuff to expect in Area 32. First, from my resources here, a lot of great stuff. This video here, Dan Settles in Greece, of this guy called Jack Flaws. He's got an amazing series on the Lost Tribes of Israel, a very extensive study. It might take a while, so just it's a lecture series. He goes in very good detail. He gets all the historical evidence to prove to you that yes, Israel is literally the whole world now. Like there's no excuse saying, oh, I'm not an Israelite. You probably are related at some point because they spread it everywhere. So this is the video of the one part of the 24 long series of historical evidence of the lost tribes and the fullness of the Gentiles that Jacob forewarns over Ephraim. You're going to see the prophecies come true in these videos. It's so cool, man. This man, Jack Flaws, has done extraordinary information and he has scholarly insight on this topic. And I highly recommend you take the time to check out his lectures. But also, no, I don't agree with all his conclusions, but I still respect him very much. And he's very, he's not boring. He's very, enthusiastic about his research. Yeah, he's also a bit, quirky as well. So check it out. Great. So these are more resources if you're interested. Professor Mekinen, lectures on ancient Greece are just ace. Bethany Hughes' documentary on Sparta, if you want to know historically about the Spartans. Rustis does Black Awakening. You can just search up Black Awakening and you can find the full video. Here's one here, full version of the Black Awakening by God Is Not Dead. And now here's James Casbolt's thing. I'm going to show you guys. Max Spears and James Casbolt, they say point blank that they are from the tribe of Dan, or they're the group they came from, descendant from the tribe of Dan. So listen here. So see James Casbolt at the 655 mark. He covers his bloodline as well as the other 42 children that he was raised with that have connection with the blue bloods, the Rh negative bloods, and these are all from the tribe of Dan. They, as the people creating these super soldier projects, are looking for these apostate ethnic Israelites, and it seems to me that Dan is one of these Luciferians. The tribe of Dan is what these Luciferians are desiring the most. This fulfills the prophecy of Dan not being in the 144,000 in the end times, and also might connect to why Dan's last words refer to jealousy in the Testament of the Patriarchs, which is another ancient source that is quite awesome. So let's have a look at James Casbolt at the 655 mark, if I could find it.
This report is dedicated to Mila victims.
Physically see radio waves. I can tune my eyes in like a digital. It looks like a pebble being dropped into a pond and the ripples come out of it.
So what brought you to Project Mannequin and what kind of training did you go through?
So Project Mannequin is the program he was in.
Basically, It was because I come from a Jewish family. It's actually a blue blood family, aristocratic family.
What does that mean?
The descendants of the French royal family in the French Revolution. But I've got a friend who's a high-level Freemason involved in US intelligence, and he's helped me to trace this bloodline. Actually, descendants of the tribe of Dan, which is people call the Lost Tribe of Israel, one of the 12 tribes.
And where did they originate?
What's
the big deal about that particular tribe?
Well, I'll talk about the second part of their history. Basically, they came out of in the second part of history, come out of the Middle East at the time of the Exodus, and then they travelled up to Greece, where they were known as the Spartans. And everywhere they've gone, they were always master warriors and scientists. And
have you been able to trace them further before the Exodus, further back?
Yeah, further back. Originally, they come from Atlantis.
Right.
They're actually a genetically engineered race.
Wow, pretty far out, pretty out there. So, yeah, some of the stuff he said they were a master race of soldiers. They were always good soldiers. This is why they chose these genetic bloodlines. And you notice that he comes in the French royal family. The French, if you look into the research of the French people, they settled in an area called Gaul. And do you know that place in the Galatia where Paul went? Some say that might have been France, some suggest. Very interesting. And all these people, they settle up there everywhere the tribe of Dan went. So he's from the French royal family, Casbolt. And then when he said about Atlantis, that's actually a lie. The Atlanteans were not Israelites. They were Nephilim. They were second, third, fourth, fifth generation Nephilim hybrids that ruled that place. And yeah, maybe there were good people living there, but the tribe of Dan was not from Atlantis. They were from the Exodus. And, he said they went into Greece, and that's what happened during the time of when they were in Egypt, and they settled down there. So now let's go to Super Soldier Max Spears confirming this claim in his video. So 52.9.
Well, we leave it at that for the second, and we'll get it.
50-29. So.
And obviously they call it Babylon or Sumer, and they say that's the beginning cradle of civilization. It obviously.
The whole point of Andy Power's book, because the Irish, the people on these islands, were the ones who re-civilized after the Great Catastrophe,
right,
and met those who emerged from Giza.
Absolutely, and I think it's important to bring up the tribe of Dan, because the tribe of Dan is the line that comes all the way through there from Atlantis. The sources from Atlantis.
Notice how he says Atlantis as well. So it seems like he and Casbolt are drawing from the same information, propaganda that they were taught by the Freemasons, because they said they got it from the Freemasons. Well, remember, Freemasons, they have truth, but they twist it. They say they're Atlantis, but they're not. They're Israelites. That's
coming through Sumer, Egypt, south of France, all the way up, and now Denmark. There's a huge amount in Denmark, but they're all in islands. Danny Boy is really.
Remember the Tuatha De Danann, the Irish.
About old Dan,
And in order to hold the Irish down, they've generated this.
And you notice these guys are all from England. They're from Ireland. Wonder why they're claiming to be from the tribe.
Conflict situation, which means that...
Yeah, it's very interesting. I got Stephen N. Collins' video on the Lost Tribes. I've also got The Serpent's Trail, The Mysteries of the Mysterious Tribe of Dan article, Esau of I Hated, The Apostate Tribe of Dan, The Lost Tribe of Dan, Early Christian Jewish views of the identity of the Antichrist. A lot of information out there if you want to do your own research. Actually, I disagree with this. I don't think Gad is the Native Americans. I think the Native Americans, who are also Israelites, if you are confused about that, please watch these lectures and watch this video here from the AUC TV. Gad, I think, is Germany. The Issachar, I believe, are the Native American Cherokee and all that. Anyways, let's move on. Asher is said to produce good food and is known for olive oil. Very valuable trade item, olive oil. and Naphtali shall be good speakers. And it could be very well that the Naphtalites will be the ones spreading the gospel on the streets with boldness to the Gentile nations. Interestingly, it's interesting how Zebulun is good at the way of the sea. So with both Naphtali and Zebulun working together, they can spread the gospel across the world. Very reminiscent of Paul's missions. Benjamin's fate is tragic. In Judges 20 was intriguing. Is the only story in the Bible that almost made me tear up when I first read it. Man, it's such a tragedy, Judges 20, because Benjamin is literally nearly wiped out to extinction, and they have to assimilate in Judah. So the Jews are now part of Benjamin because they made there was a big mistake that they did in the time of the Judges. They're a ravening wolf. So hot. So Levi and Simeon are not hotheads. Hothead tribes, I mean. So hotheads, they were the ones that destroyed the whole town of Shechem, if you recall. So Joseph nourishes his family, all finally together as their children, as Yeshua does. So when they gather together to get blessed. It's a picture of the end when Yeshua gathers his people in the clouds. That is the rapture at the second coming. It's not pre-trib rapture. Part of Judah's blessing was to learn how to use the bow, as David said, but it is not mentioned in the Torah, but in Jasher 56, 8-9, this is what Jasher 56 says. Jacob said unto Judah, I know, my son, that thou art a mighty man for thy brethren. Reign over them, and thy sons shall reign over their sons forever. Only teach thy sons the bow. We know the bow comes to the root word yara. Remember Jim Sally said, which is the root word for Torah as well. So the bow is a symbol of the Torah and all the weapons of war, in order that they may fight the battles of their brother who will rule over his enemies. Wow. The blessing of Joseph was taken from the hands of the Amorites, who were Nephilim giants. They grew to the height of cedar trees. Amos 2:9 says they were biggest cedar trees, and the cedar trees of Lebanon were the biggest of the world, so they must have been big boys. So did Jacob in his past fight giants? Because in the book of Jasher it mentions that. The capitalization of the angel which redeemed me, said Jacob, from this evil was said to be Yeshua when he wrestled with him. Remember a few weeks ago when we talked about the wrestling angel? That's it. Jacob is Israel who Yeshua redeems. This idea makes more sense prophetically. Wait, did Joseph get Jacob prepared for an Egyptian, I think I would say prepared Jacob's burial in an Egyptian way. So like, the mummification and all that stuff that they do. No, they didn't. What happened is they got the Egyptians to embalm him, which is not the same thing as mummification. They would do that all the time. So what they did, the Egyptians helped bury him, but then they did the ceremony in Canaan. So they had no influence with the Egyptians. The burial of Jacob is in fact very significant in Egypt, but he asked to be buried in Canaan in the fields of Ephron the satyr, where Abraham and Isaac were buried. Mentuhotep III strangely accepts this request, which is a big mistake and a disgrace to the traditional Egyptian law. So that really says something about Mentuhotep's character and mentality. He must have been a very kind man to do that, to subvert traditional Egyptian law. That probably is why he was nearly erased from history. This is a valid reason why Amenemhet overthrew Mentuhotep IV and forgot about Joseph, because he's like, these guys were heretics to the state. They nearly destroyed Egypt with famine. That's what he says. So Joseph was not put in an Egyptian sarcophagus, but an ark, which is the picture of the Ark of the Covenant. So the bones of Joseph are connected to the bones in the valley of Ezekiel 37, 1-14. Okay, so we read this last video, but this is the first part of it. So Yahuwah's hand was on me, and he brought me out in Yahuwah's spirit and set me down in the in the middle of the valley, and it was full of bones. And he caused me to pass them all around, and behold, there were very many in the open valley, and behold, they were very dry. And he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? Actually, there's a very good commentary by Ardell on Your Living Waters, I should say, Your Living Waters. He has a great commentary on Ezekiel 37. How much time do we have? Yeah, we've got time. Commentary. It connects the bones of Joseph to the bones of Ezekiel 37, the regathering of Israel, and how that pictures the return in the greater Exodus. So, bones. Hold on a minute, let's find it. So, where is it? Oh, this is the 2009 commentary. I think this is the wrong one. Sorry, guys. Okay, so Torah commentary. So I think it's 2008 Vahyaki, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it is the 2008 one. Bones. He talks about the bones. There's a lot of references to the bones. All right. Now, let's read from here. Now, I like to take a leap to the end of our parsha where we find something interesting. I'll read this instead of just what I have here because Ardell nails it. Alright, Bereshit, Genesis 50-25. Then Joseph took an oath and from the children of Israel, saying, Elohim will surely visit you and shall carry up my bones from here. We find this verse alluded to in Hebrews 11, a chapter known as the Hall of Faith. For all the extraordinary events that occurred in Joseph's life, it is amazing that Joseph is only recognized by faith when he was dying, made mention of the departure of the children of Israel and gave instructions concerning his bones. What's significant in that? Let's journey through the scriptures and follow the bone trail. Bereshit 20, Genesis 2:23. And Adam said, Now a bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of man. Eve was the bride of Adam. Having been taken from his very bone, she was the very essence of the bridegroom. As a couple, they would unite and again become one flesh, achad. Let's see where else we find bones. That's a picture for the bride of Messiah and Adam being the second Adam, Yeshua. It's pretty amazing. So Exodus 12:46. And in one house it shall be eaten. You shall not carry any of the flesh outside the house, nor shall you break one of its bones. Like the Passover lamb, Yeshua also will not endure any broken bones. His body is a picture of the oneness of the bridegroom and his bride. At the time of the Exodus, we are told that Moses sees to it that the bones of Joseph will be taken along into the promised land. Exodus 13:19. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had placed the children of Israel under solemn oath, saying, Adonai will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here with you. After the Israelites settled into the promised land, we read a sad story of an adulterous concubine. You can read the story yourself in Judges 19, but upon her death, her husband cut her body into 12 bones, sent each tribe one of her bones. So this is where people say, oh, the Bible is disgusting because it has a harlot being cut up into 12 pieces. The whole point of that is to show the depravity of disobedient Israel. It doesn't encourage this sort of thing. I just want to make that clear. It's supposed to be a tragedy. Greek tragedies, they don't complain about the Greek tragedies like a mother killing her own children and all these horrible things. The whole point of that tragedy was to show the consequences of sin. So this also is a deeper picture of such a gruesome event. Let's read here in Judges 19:29. And when he had come into his house, he took a knife and laid hold of his concubine and divided her, together with her bones, into 12 pieces, and sent her into all the coasts of Israel. The story is so gruesome. Let's see if we can find Hebraic understanding in it. Jeff Benner, known for his ancient Hebrew insights, paints an interesting picture of the word for covenant that just might tie in. The following quote is from his book, The Living Words. Here's his quote from the guy. While the Hebrew word beriyit means covenant, the root of the word and its cultural background are helpful in understanding its fuller meaning. The word comes from the root bara, meaning to select the choicest meat. The word beriyit is literally the choicest, fattest animal that is slaughtered for the covenant ceremony. Genesis 31:44. Now therefore come, let us make a covenant, beriyit, you and I, and let us be a witness between you and me. The phrase make a covenant is found 13 times in the Hebrew Bible, where the word make is the Hebrew word kalat, meaning to cut. Literally, the phrase make a covenant means cut the choice pieces of meat. When a covenant is made, the fattened animal is cut into 2 pieces and laid out on the ground. Each party of the covenant then passes through the pieces. This symbolic act signifies to both parties that if one of the parties fails to meet their agreement, then the other has the right to do to the other what they did to the animal. And that explains why God split Shechem when he made a covenant with Abraham. It's the dividing. So countless times over the years following the institution of this covenant, Israel failed to abide by the covenantal agreement. Just as the animal of the sacrifice was cut into 2 pieces, Israel was also cut in 2 for their unfaithfulness to the covenant, but being cut into 2 nations, Israel and Judah. End quote. Could we perhaps add to this that the result of Israel's faithfulness, they were also cut into 12 bones, just like the unfaithful concubine? This is another picture. Is this another picture of the scattering of the tribes? Indeed, I think it is. Yeshua physically took on the unfaithfulness of these tribes when he hung on the tree. This is beautiful. The Hebrew word for out of joint, parad, also means divided or disconnected. Psalms 22:14, I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. Because of Yeshua's sacrifice, we are all able to put the out of joint bones back together, and because we become one achad with him again. We can become bone of his bone in the same way Eve became one with Adam. This was the goal of Messiah when he said, "Here come for the scattered pieces, the lost sheep of the house of Israel." This is what the gospel is all about, guys. It's about the reunification of the bones, bringing them together. It's just a bone of Joseph's bone has so much meaning. It points to the gospel. Out of all things, a bone. No, it's just amazing. So Ephesians 5:30, for we are members of his body. He's full of his flesh and of his bones. Look at this, guys. We are the body of Messiah. We can't be divided over doctrines and stuff. 1 Corinthians 12:12, for as the body is one, has many members, but all the members of that one body, being many, are one, also is Messiah. Let's finish with this exciting picture of the bones coming together. Ezekiel 37:1. Starting at verse 1. The hand of Yahuwah came upon me and brought me out to the Spirit, and the Spirit of Yahuwah brought me out and set me down in the midst of a valley. Root word indicating something is split. Remember, covenant, split covenant, and it was full of bones. And then he caused me to pass by them all around, and behold, there were very many in the open valley, and indeed they were very dry. They were without water of the living word. They were like dead. And he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? So I answered, O Adonai Yahuwah, you know. And again he said to me, prophesy to these bones and say to them, O dry bones, hear, Shema, which means to obey and do. It's to hear and do the word of Yahuwah. This is us, guys. We're the bones. We're like, hear the word of God and do the word of God. Faith is a verb, guys. Thus says Adonai Yahweh to these bones, surely I will cause breath, the Ruach, the Spirit, the Holy Ghost, Pentecost, guys, to enter into you, and you shall live. Oh man, this is amazing. I remember when Rob Skiba read this passage and he was jumping up and down. It's so good, the revelation that comes out of this. Notice in verse 4, the bones are told to hear Shema, the word. Shema is not only hear or obey, but the bones can knit together in community. The church is the Israel community. That's what it is. Ezekiel 37, starting at 8. Indeed, as I looked, the sinews and the flesh came upon them, and the skins covered over them, new creations, they're reborn. But there was no breath in them. Also he said to me, prophesy to the breath, prophesy, son of man, and say to the breath, thus says Adonai Yahweh, come from the four winds, O breath, the spirit, and the spirit on the slain, that they may live. It's like Yeshua says, come to me and you may have life. So I prophesied and he commanded me, and breath, spirit came into them, and they lived and stood up upon their feet, an exceeding great army, like the 144,000. This is beautiful. Then he said to me, son of man, these bones are the whole houses of Israel. Here we go, guys. And indeed said, our bones are dry, our hope is lost, and we ourselves are cut off. Therefore prophesy and say to them, thus says Adonai Yahweh, behold, all my people, I will open your graves and cause you to come up from your graves, the world, and you shall bring you into the land of Israel, the greater Exodus. It's all pointing to this. It's amazing. It's all the end from the beginning. It's a masterpiece. The Bible's a literary masterpiece. It trumps over any Shakespearean literary classic. It's like divine. It's not it's impossible man to do this. Then ye shall know that I am Yahweh when I've opened your graves, O my people, and brought you up from your graves. I will put my spirit in you, and you shall live, and I will place you in your own land. And then you shall know that I, Yahweh, have spoken it and performed it, says Yahweh. Verse 11 tells us these bones are the whole houses of Israel. Like Joseph, these bones have been taken to the land of Israel. This is a promise for Israel, friends. Now, just one more thing. Guess what the parent root for bones is? It is the word for tree. Remember when we talked about the tree of life just with Jim Staley? It's all connected, guys. It's amazing. You continue on reading Ezekiel 37. We'll come to the very familiar two-stick prophecy. Remember last video we spoke about the two sticks, detailing the restoration of the house of Judah and the house of Ephraim. And guess what the Hebrew word for stick is? The word for tree. Wow. That's just so important, guys, because if you think, but the law's done away with, and Israel is the nation of Israel, then you guys are missing out on everything. Literally, if you believe in dispensational theology, you might as well throw out the whole Bible, because then most of the Bible becomes worthless to you. So if you really don't know what I'm talking about, please press this tab, start here, why do Torah? I've got check out Jim Staley's Identity Crisis video, and talks about the identity of Israel and who you are. We are Israel, and we are regathering together as the bones. Now, okay, so we're going to be reading the half Torah portion, which is 1 Kings 2, 1 and through verse 12. So we're going to be reading this, and we're going to connect this to the Torah portion we just read. So I've got some notes here, so we'll listen to Bible.is. If it works. Okay. Doesn't seem to be working. Let's reload this. Sorry guys, technical difficulties.
1 Kings 2. When David's time to die drew near, he commanded Solomon his son, saying,
I am about to go the way of all the earth. Be strong and show yourself a man, and keep the charge of the Lord your God, walking in his ways and keeping his statutes, his commandments, his rules, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that you may prosper in all that you do and wherever you turn, that the Lord may establish his word that he spoke concerning me, saying, if your sons pay close attention to their way, to walk before me in faithfulness with all their heart and with all their soul, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel. Moreover, you also know what Joab, the son of Zeruiah, did to me, how he dealt with the two commanders of the armies of Israel, Abner, the son of Ner, and Amasa, the son of Jether, whom he killed, avenging in time of peace for blood that had been shed in war, and putting the blood of war on the belt around his waist and on the sandals on his feet. Act therefore according to your wisdom, but do not let his gray head go down to Sheol in peace, but deal loyally with the sons of Barzillai, the Gileadite, and let them be among those who eat at your table. For with such loyalty they met me when I fled from Absalom, your brother. And there is also with you Shimei, the son of Gera, the Benjaminite, from Bahurim, who cursed me with a grievous curse on the day when I went to Mahanaim. But when he came down to meet me at the Jordan, I swore to him by the Lord, saying, I will not put you to death with the sword. Now therefore, do not hold him guiltless, for you are a wise man. You will know what you ought to do to him, and you shall bring his gray head down with blood to Sheol.
Then David slept with his fathers, and was buried in the city of David. And the time that David reigned over Israel was 40 years. He reigned 7 years in Hebron, and 33 years in Jerusalem. So Solomon sat on the throne of David his father, and his kingdom was firmly established.
All right. Let's look at the similarities. There's a connection with the near-death blessings. So David blesses his best son Solomon, just as Jacob blesses his best son Joseph. That's an obvious similarity. Obviously, there is probably much more in here that's connected to here. I think what it's also talking about, from what I noticed, obviously prophesies over Solomon that he's got wisdom to keep the commandments and all that, similar to what Joseph gets. But also mentioned the son of Zeruiah and all these sons of Ner and the son of Jether, all these people he mentions, is similar to how Jacob also mentions all the other sons of Israel, like Dan and Reuben and Naphtali and Judah. So it's sort of a parallel with that. Interesting. So there's a lot, I'm not going to read all the Torah portions for this, because look how many there are. There's a lot. So I want you to do this in your own time to study. But for this video, we're going to read Revelation, because that's about the 144,000, which is very significant for this Parsha. But first, we're going to look at the fish and the symbolism of the fish. So the multitude of fish that's caught by Peter represents the multitude of the nations and the fullness of the Gentiles of Ephraim. The fish is a symbol of men. That's why Yeshua calls Peter the fisherman, the fisher of men. So Peter talks about Gentiles, Ephraim, becoming adopted into Israel. It's called the adoption. That's what happens when we get saved. We become adopted into God's family. Alright, so it says in 1 John 11, it says that Peter gathered all 153 fish. 153 is a numerical value for Passover and covenant in Hebrew. Noah's Ark landed on the 7th of Aviv on Passover. So before, okay, we're going to end with this and then we'll read Revelation. So we'll read Revelation 7 on the audio, and then next Revelation 14 I'll just read it myself. So let's read it.
Chapter 7. And after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying,
Hurt not the earth, neither the sea nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads.
And I heard the number of them which were sealed. And there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Of the tribe of Judah were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Reuben were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Gad were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Aser were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Nephthalim were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Manasseh were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Simeon were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Levi were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Issachar were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Zabulon were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Joseph were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Benjamin were sealed 12,000. After this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne, and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands, and cried with a loud voice, saying,
Salvation to our God, which sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb.
And all the angels stood round about the throne, and about the elders and the 4 beasts, and fell before the throne on their faces, and worshipped God, saying,
Amen. Blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be unto our God forever and ever. Amen.
And one of the elders answered, saying unto me,
What are these which are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they?
And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me,
These are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes, and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore are they before the throne of God, and serve him day and night in his temple. And he that sitteth on the throne shall dwell among them. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun light on them, nor any heat. For the Lamb which is in the midst of the throne shall feed them, and shall lead them unto living fountains of waters, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes.
Man, you see all the significance, and this is the greater Exodus. All the tribes, Dan's not mentioned. Wow, all from the nations. This is the gathering that we read about in Ezekiel 37, represented by the gathering of Jacob when he gets all his children to bless them. It is just, this is the end of the Bible. So this is the beginning from the end. God knew the story from the beginning. He ties it in perfectly. It's a perfectly written story. So not all the 144,000 are Levites, because some people believe they're just Levites, because in Revelation all the tribes except Dan will have 12,000. Dan is not part of 144,000 and the greater Exodus. This is because Dan is, we read that. Dan will be against the greater Exodus. The song of the 144,000 will be like the song of Moses. Some believe they're kids. So there's different theories out there who the 144,000 are. Some believe that they are young children from Israel. So you can see Zach Bauer's theory on this. This is a great video on it. You can check it out later. So let's conclude Genesis by reading chapter 14 from Revelation. So then I looked, and behold, the Lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 men who had his name and his father's name inscribed on their foreheads. That's the antithesis of the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast here is the name of the blasphemous name is on all the other people except for these people. They have God's name on their foreheads. They're protected. And I heard the voice from heaven like the sound of great waters and like the rumbling of mighty thunder. The voice I heard seemed like music of harpists accompanying themselves on their harps. And they sang a new song before the throne of God and before the four living creatures and before the elders of the heavenly or the heavenly council, I should say. No one could learn to sing that song except the 144,000 who have been ransomed, purchased, and redeemed, just like we are ransomed, purchased, and redeemed by Yeshua's sacrifice from the earth, which is Egypt, symbol for Egypt. These are they who have not defiled themselves in the relationship with women. This is why people believe they're children, for they are virgins, pure as virgins. That's why children, virgins, more likely to be virgins. They who have, and some say they're also spiritual virgins, like the church has not been defiled by the idols and false gods, maybe. So this could be the bride, not the 144,000 could be the bride. Certainly it's part of the bride, I agree. These are they who followed the Lamb wherever he goes. These are they who have been ransomed, purchased, and redeemed from among men as the first fruits for God and the Lamb. So the first fruits is a reference in the Torah to children. So this is why people believe the first fruits offering is a child, like a young animal. No lie was found to be upon their lips. Young kids don't lie very much, so this is why they believe that. For they are blameless, spotless, untainted, without blemish before the throne of God. And then I saw another angel fly in mid-air with an eternal gospel, good news to tell to the inhabitants of the earth, to every race and tribe and language and people. This is why I believe some Danites might be saved too, because look at this. An angel literally goes to every single person on earth and they hear the gospel. So, people going out there trying to go to places like Sentinel Island where people are living there in this, nomadic, Stone Age lives. No one's gone there. No civilization's gone there. And people try to go there and preach the gospel and die, and they've been killed by them. So you wonder, we shouldn't worry. If you read this, then the angel's going to do it for us. An angel's going to go to places like Sentinel Island, and those natives are going to find out about Yeshua. So we shouldn't be worrying about literally going to places, remote parts of the earth where they cannot hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. So the angel's going to do it. So we shouldn't worry about that too much, but it doesn't mean that we should try and get the light out as far as possible. And he cried with a mighty voice, revere God and give him glory, honor, and praise and worship, for the hour of his judgment has arrived. Fall down before him, pay him homage and adoration, and worship him who created heaven and earth, sea, and the springs, fountains of water. And that is the readings for the Torah portion. So I would like to conclude with this last final words before we finish Genesis for this year. Before announcing his instructions, the Torah, Yahweh spends 50 chapters showing us how he has come into relationship with unrighteous men who are willing to submit their own personal desires to follow his directions in faith. It's a narrative of history, the Genesis. That's what it is. I am 17 when I started doing Torah and getting massive revelation that is that this small growing teenage brain can even handle. So that is significant right there, and I believe God is planning this out since the beginning of my life. It's like Joseph, when he was 17, he began to get prophetic dreams from God and to learn how to have a deeper decipher of secrets and dreams. And if that's not enough, I woke up to the truth in March of April 2017. What's up with these 17s everywhere? And I will say that around September 2017, around the time the Revelation 12 sign star alignment that only appeared twice in history at Jesus' birth and Abraham's birth happened. Wow, God's amazing. Actually, in my life, I can testify to this. 17, remember, 17 is a very powerful number. God's amazing. I am so excited and threw it out of my mind to see what He has in store for me. My question to you is this, and to myself too. Have you also given up secular life to dedicate it to Messiah? Because if you dedicate it to Messiah, He has so much blessings to give you. I mean, if you just take up your cross and follow Him and deny yourself, and He will make you strong. So what we normally say at the end of each studying each book of the Bible, we will conclude with this: be strong, and may we be strengthened. So that is it as Genesis for us. That's pretty much the end of the study. Before we conclude, I want to lead you to the Error of 303 project. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see my research that I've done in a fictionalized package, you check out the Error of 303 page, and you can find out what my project I'm working on. It's as a screenplay. It is a story about super soldiers and Nephilim and the end times, and it's going to go into all that stuff. It's pretty much it's got an Avengers type, universe to it, but it's got the mythology of Percy Jackson, a conspiracy of X-Files. It's going to be a secular looking movie, but it's going to have the truth in it to subvert what Satan is doing in the media. Let's check out these first 4 episodes, which are already up for free. And yes, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you share and subscribe, and stay tuned for more 12 portion videos. I would finally do one. I'm going to start I've caught up to the schedule now when we're going to start Exodus Shemot this week and the Shabbat, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Exodus is really good. It's got one of my favorite Torah portions in there because I've always loved the Exodus account. It's always been my favorite, so I'm so thrilled to look into it with you guys. So thanks for watching, and have a blessed week. Shalom.